D&D, at its core, is a game where you and your friends sit around telling a story together, and if there's a chance a character in the game might fail at doing something, then you roll a dice to determine if they succeed. D&D originally was a modified version of old-school medieval war games, where you commanded your legions of crusaders against other armies of evil, French people, I don't know. A few game designers tweaked these medieval war games so that each player controlled a single customized unit, and then relocated the games from medieval Europe to Tolkien-inspired fantasy. And ta-da! Dungeons & Dragons was born. I love that idea, by the way. What if someone looked at chess and thought, what if this one was named Steve? Would we play chess differently if the characters had story arcs? Anyway, this was only the beginning. Recently, all the kids who grew up playing D&D are back, and this time, they've showered. If they aren't playing D&D, they're making their own games, inspired by the rules and general structure of D&D. This genre of game that uses storytelling math rocks is called tabletop role-playing games, or tabletop RPGs. D&D, and tabletop RPGs with it, are currently more popular than they ever have been. Now, players can play online with one another or watch other people stream their games, and one of these groups has become so successful, they turned the story they told playing D&D into an animated TV show. D&D is such a hot topic, it isn't even a phase anymore, Mom. It's who we are now. And it's kind of bad. D&D, mechanically, is still one of these old-school medieval war games. I watched a TikTok at some point where someone pointed out that every skill gained by leveling is essentially a gun, just a new way to deal damage. And if all there are guns, that's all people are going to use. The system incentivizes and rewards chaotic violence. But why is that bad, I hear you asking? I love chaotic violence. Well, I do too. My favorite video game is Doom. But it's bad because the other half of the game is a character-based storytelling game, and there are no real rules to deal with that. Critical Role, the successful Twitch group that I was talking about earlier, they make it work because they're willing to just sit for hours and hours improvising conversation without ever rolling a dice. But not everybody was born in a black box theater, and not everybody can do that, or even wants to do that. D&D is designed to be a board game where you feel like an epic hero, but then they want you to do goofy voices with it too. Like if Borderlands was made without any of the writing or voice acting. No wonder the next Borderlands game is just a D&D with guns. If you want to tell a story in D&D, you have to do all of the heavy lifting yourself. And other tabletop RPGs help with that lifting. Savage Worlds, Arthur Pendragon, Fate, Monster of the Week, Masks, even the Green Knight movie RPG have mechanical systems where personality flaws and strengths play into your roles and change the story accordingly. These systems help tell a story, and while they may not have as deep of a combat system, I would argue that D&D's combat system is really just awful. There are other tabletop RPGs that do combat better, like Spyhander, Shadowrun, GURPS, Pathfinder, or even just co-op video games. D&D doesn't do any one thing really well. It isn't even a jack of all trades. It's just a Joe of all trades. Predictable, ambitionless, shallow, and focused on dealing damage. I know that you came here to listen to me talk about why Dungeons & Dragons, the game itself, isn't as good as it could be, but I want to kind of focus for a second on the business model of D&D and kind of the culture around it as well. Because Wizards of the Coast has decided that they're going to release content in a very specific way. And for new players, it can become a bit of a problem financially just to start playing. I mean, yes, if you just pay like $20, you can get the starter kit. And if you wait for it to go on sale, that'll go down to $12. No big deal. But, you should also probably get the Essentials kit, which is also like $20 or $13 if you wait for it to go on sale. And, once you enjoy that, you should really get the core rules, the core rules, those are about $90 altogether. And once you do that, you really need to get the rules expansion, right? Where all of the rules and all of the races and all of the magic spells that you could want. And those are really going to, they're going to cost about $140 after everything. And you shouldn't get these ones anymore. You should definitely get the new ones, right? You should get these ones that are reprinted versions. Oh, what's that? You already have the old ones? Well, that's too bad. Those aren't really worth anything anymore. You really need to buy these new ones now. Oh, and what's that? You want to use all of these games on a digital tabletop? Oh, I'm sorry. You have to go and buy those again. You have to go and buy those again. And we haven't even started talking about all the adventure modules. That's right, like pre-made adventures there are. There's special editions, minis, dice, maps, and whatever that, while not really necessary to play the game, are still a part of this culture, and it's still a part of like this expectation that you need these things. And you don't need any of those things, but as a new player, you feel like you do need them. And that's just the stuff that Wizards publishes. That's right. There are independent creators and entire third-party companies that make new content for 5th edition. And Wizards of the Coast even set up a online storefront where people make new content for their game. And that's only for 5th edition. That's right, 5th edition. This is the current iteration of the rules. And in 5 years, we've got to do all of this all over again for the next edition of the game. And to top it all off, there's no consistency. Every adventure module feels wildly different from Candlekeep to Strixhaven, and I never know if I'm going to like a new module. I've only run pre-made adventures, and it was always clear that my players enjoyed the actual written content the very least, and enjoyed their characters' stories far more. I know you don't need pre-made adventures, but it's just wild to have so many in a system that rewards players for going off script and just nuking goblins. The game is a mess, so why even play? Well, it's spectacular. I did theater in high school. Surprising, I know. And there was a true high being on stage, hearing the roar of the crowd, and coming together as a group to create something greater than all of us, and getting lost in that good story. There's nothing like it, or so I thought. D&D is the closest thing I've ever come to that rush. I've run 3 campaigns and countless one-shots, hundreds and hundreds of hours of D&D. And whenever a story ends and we say goodbye to those characters, it's that same rush that I got on stage, but also far more intimate, where the creators and the audience are one, and we get lost in a fantasy world that we built together. And when it's over, it's a celebration and a mourning. And yet those characters live on in our minds. It's like a strange shared dream that we all had together. It has brought me closer to my players than any other activity ever has. And while the content saturation can be a bit of a problem, Wizards of the Coast has seriously encouraged people to homebrew rules and make products for their games. They've given resources and permissions, and like I said, there's so many people who are creating stuff for you to purchase and use, or even use for free. If you don't like something about D&D, someone has addressed it and proposed a solution. Other games don't have the large community of people interacting with the game and fixing the system as they play it. If you're willing to watch some Bob World Builder and follow a few homebrew subreddits, you will be overwhelmed with the ways you could play the game. And it's not like there's like a cop standing over your shoulder telling you how to play. You can play it however you'd like. Is that more to do on top of buying the base rules? Oh yeah, but the community is there to help you navigate that. There are thousands of creators entirely dedicated to just D&D, and it's easy to find a place to fit in. So now I hear you saying, well, now hang on, the thumbnail says that D&D sucks, but he's saying that we should play it? Well, to quote The Simpsons,
"You know, Homer, it's very easy to criticize."
Fun, too.
I believe with 5th edition, D&D made the choice to welcome in newcomers to the tabletop RPG world at the expense of polished design. D&D is so accessible now, and so you should give it a shot. We should be critical of the flaws in the game so that Wizards of the Coast knows what to change. They even put out surveys to see what people like and what they don't like to prepare for the next edition. D&D is a great baseline for learning what tabletop RPGs are and what you might find fun. And on top of that, it's a very accessible and very welcoming gateway into the hobby. Getting in now and changing the genre for the better and changing the hobby for the better is what matters. So yeah, D&D sucks. It sucks pretty bad, but it's a really good time. It's kind of like pizza. Like a little Caesar's pizza. I mean, yeah, it could have been much better, but everyone loves pizza.